politics. Well, speaking about politics, I'm kidding. We're not going anywhere in politics right now. Hit that beat.
What are you doing? Yeah, there you go.
Actually, that was a really bad idea. Can you hit the bad idea button? I'm Bobby. I'm just shitting the bed for no reason. No one's asking.
Were you gonna rap?
No, I wasn't. I'm going to be honest what happened. I said politics and I didn't want to get into it, and I panicked in my mind.
Okay, panic rap.
Because I didn't know how to back out of it. I'm just going to be very honest. I was like, hit that button just to throw whatever I was saying off there.
So we're separating.
Hit that save me button.
That's exactly.
Down. Ooh. I'm eating brunch with my people though. The homie Dyke just cooked up a feast and we bout to eat it, bro. Fucked around and has to mix the lobster with the poutine. Daddy is rolling blue dream. Them boys got down a routine. It's Naptown culture. Cooking 7 courses. Had to pass the torch and now I'm grabbing second portion. So sit back, relax, grab a drink and a smoke. It's Harder Brunch on the way and get prepared for the jokes. Whoa.
Hi, and welcome to the After Brunch. Oh, come on, boys. Hi, and welcome to the Harder Brunch Podcast. I'm your host, Dyke Michaels, fully in charge of my faculties. With me, as always, my favorite co-host, Thaddaeus Mckee.
Yo, slappy pappy wham wham. We are back here in the studio. Hot dog.
And the ones and twos, the wheels of steel, the sauce boss of Indianapolis, and the last broke dragon. Give it up for Zach Roan.
Are you ready to get hard?
Hey.
You guys really took away from my flub up there. Thanks by making it weird.
We're the Hardys. That's what we do. The Hardy Boys.
The hardest boys.
No. Brunch Nation, Ed. Oh, my God. All right. We're starting off strong. A very special first-time guest with us in studio, entrepreneur Eddie Sahm. Welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Now, do you professionally, is it Ed or Eddie professionally?
I don't really honestly have a way. I think most people call me Ed now, but like my friends call me Eddie.
Oh.
I think the younger people who work for me gravitate towards Eddie. I think Eddie feels younger. It's
yeah. I was just going to say, because I think if you're over like 25 and you have any kind of E name, you're committing to being fun. Yeah. You know, you better be fun.
You buy in.
Yeah. But I think that's where I've always heard, because I know a lot of people that have either worked for you, around you, with you, and it was always like, Eddie. I didn't even know what you looked like until you came up to me at a half liter during an open mic. And I was like, hey, no autographs now, right now. You know, like, I'm trying to work on my craft.
I do a lot of random introductions.
You're like, oh no,
I do want to say I like Eddie because it stands for Eddie Bulls. Am I edibles?
Heyo.
Is that a holler button? Is that a good one?
That was a really good joke, Thad.
Thank you so much. No, I said that earlier this week and someone laughed, and I now
Who
hate
was
that
this person? I want to know.
I hate that person that yes-and that joke.
There's
Thank
boo
you.
buttons for both of you. There's you and them.
How dare me? But yeah, there is something about Eddie that just he comes out of the shadows. I feel like you're kind of like a Batman.
In ways,
in the city, like you might meet him, you might get beat up by him. You never know. But
I have a mobile.
When I met you at this event. It was called the
Butter Art Fair.
And I had a few drinks, and you came out of the shadows, and you're like, "Hello." And like you might as well have been wearing a Batman mask. You're like, "I'm Eddie Sahm." I'm like, I was like, "Wait a second. I know this guy. I know this name from the Sam's restaurant." And you're like, "I just wanted to say hi." And I was like, I went to text Dyke, and then all of a sudden you disappeared in the shadows. You were gone. I couldn't even.
I think that was the reminder that you had overbooked on the first time I was going to be here. The reminder was, we need to tell Eddie he can't come on the show.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
My heart was broken, and then we rescheduled.
Okay, yeah.
That's like a reverse wall of shame. We're on his wall of shame.
Wait, we did that?
I'll never forget.
Well, yeah, I will say we did it. Yes, we sure did.
I take it as that person's more important than me, and that's a real insult.
Who was it?
Yeah, who was it?
Was it Barf Guy?
Whoever it was wasn't more important.
Look, we had this guy that he does this really cool thing. He just barfs. And we had to have him on.
I could do that if needed. I could be a backup barf guy.
Someone just like, I could barf. I could try to get on the show. I could throw up.
I think I don't remember. I think it was a traveling comic or somebody that was in here, but it was definitely a my bad on double booking. Thad, his claim to fame is he's never double booked himself as a comedian. And so now I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Sometime soon.
One other time.
It's coming.
Because he's come real close a lot of times, but it's never actually happened.
Did you get like bailed out, like someone canceled? Like, actually, we don't need you. And you're like, thank God.
No, my real closeness is like, shit. I think I just booked myself. And then I look, I'm like, oh, no, wait, that was the 17th, not the 16th.
So it's pure luck.
Pure, yeah.
It works for you.
Let me ask you this. You're a man with a lot of stuff going on. But you're in your 30s, right? Mid 30s. How do you keep all of your stuff straight? Are you digital or analog?
Ooh,
like
good
with
question.
your like schedules and such.
I am analog. I've had to go.
Okay, Dyke.
I've had to go to digital more. I mean, so much
You
stuff.
have to.
So much stuff now feeds through like how we make our employees' schedules and how I do my orders and all that stuff now has kind of transitioned as these companies try to fire human beings to let a computer do their work, which sucks. But for me, most of my employees know like I need it written on paper. Like I don't go home and look at my laptop. I go home and I look at a clipboard that has 9,000 stacks of paper, and this is going to make my schedule for the next 72 hours. So I would say, for me, I work more that way.
There's something about it's something about being tangible. I don't know, like that. Where it's just like, so I every year I go out and I buy one of those. I'll buy like a $7 calendar at like CVS or something like that, and I use it all year. But like I typically. Like we know a lot of comedians, and double booking is a thing they do a lot. Because we're supposed to say yes to everything, Right. So it's like yes, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like, did you check your calendar to make sure you didn't have 3 other obligations that day? Yeah. And it becomes a real issue with some people. It's just like, hey, if you keep agreeing to do stuff and then don't show up, you know how that is.
I am 100% guilty of double, triple, quadruple booking, and I'm in the same world. It's like you don't turn down sales, and it's like I'll do that. I'll show up. I'll be there. Yeah. We'll cook for you, and then like 2 weeks later, my wife's like, you 100% cannot do that. So then it's like, actually, I won't be there, but let me tell you about this fantastic caterer. So man, it gets harder, but I do prefer, like I'm at the point where if I have an Instagram post that I like something looked good, or I think like a different company's got an interesting idea in marketing and we need to be better about it, I'll just like screenshot, go to a laptop and print it out. Like I need it in paper to like register in my brain, So I'm definitely that type of guy. But my schedule now, it has to be like in Outlook, and I have to be able to share it. I have a kid now, and it's like, a lot of stuff starts adding up.
So I kind of buried the lead here. You are a restaurateur,
yes.
well known in especially Indianapolis market, but I would say Midwest. How many restaurants total do you own, operate?
So my family owns 12 operations, but it's mostly food and beverage. We call ourselves a hospitality company. We do catering, we do restaurants, but we also brew. We work in the spirits field. We have bars as well, and then outside of that, we do some like consulting and helping other local people and companies get off the ground or manage projects. So we are a hospitality company at the core.
Now, who was the original? Who was
my father? Ed.
Okay,
yeah. So Eddie, he's in the same situation. Like some people call him Ed, some people call him Eddie.
Yeah.
I'm Little Ed, he's Big Ed. That's kind of like the company name if you work there long enough. So Ed started it back in 1986.
And what was his first
location?
Yeah.
116th in Allisonville.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. I was basically like born at the restaurant. But it used to be just like a gravel road. It was like he needed something extremely cheap. He worked at a place called Ground Round.
I remember
was like that was like the one, and it was very known for training managers and like very tight inventory processes and stuff. So he came from there with Mike Cunningham. Mike Cunningham and him were partners. They were Cunningham was the original GM of Psalms 116. So kind of a small world, right?
Story, yeah.
Chris Ely was our dishwasher. It's like a lot of guys worked for Ed, and in the sense that the scene was just so small. It wasn't like a lot of places you were going.
Yeah.
I think Peters and some places like that started opening up, but it just was like, you went and worked for Ed, and Ed was doing stuff fresh, and he was on the line working, so that's where you'd go. There's a lot of places now that you could go do that and get a good mentor. But
so you have been a busboy,
everything,
every position. growing up?
Mainly like, early stuff, I worked, but I wouldn't even call it working. It would be more like, here's 10 cases of potatoes and peel them until you're tired, And then after that, I got really competitive. I'm a competitive guy. So I would try to peel potatoes faster than anybody in the company. I would like challenge random guys.
Really?
Like, get over here, And then it moved into like prepping, cutting like simple things like, but I didn't get like a knife in my hand until I was probably like 13 years old, and then, they just kept moving on. Fry cook by when I was like 15, 16, doing a lot of like expediting and hosting, cleaning. Basically, like I was like the yes guy. Like if someone asks the boss's son to do something, the boss's son says yes. Like that's, if you're going to have any chance, like that's, you just say, yep, I'll clean the bathrooms. And so I did it, and I always loved it. I just liked the people I worked with. It was always interesting people.
Well, there's ownership there too, right? I think when you have, a father that's running the company and whatnot, you have a sense of pride. I like the idea though of you being like a 13-year-old challenging people that are trying to get by.
I was just so competitive. It is. It's just like,
oh, here comes the boss's son.
You have to find things to be competitive about, in like that's a restaurant, awesome. It's like you just got to. So mine was like, I'll peel carrots faster than any human being has ever peeled carrots. And that was what I did for a long time.
Have you ever stepped away from the family business, like when you were in college or any other time like that?
Yeah. I started working in college for a couple different people. So when I was at Purdue, I worked for like the Harry's Chocolate Shop crew. So they had a bar called The Pub. And I worked at The Pub for a couple years. Great people, Herschel and Mary. Herschel passed away recently, but Mary still operates all that stuff. And then I worked for a few people. I worked for a short stint of time with Steve Oakley and Chris over at Oakley's Bistro and learned a lot from them. I worked at a place called Maze in Lafayette. So, I was just kind of helping out and trying to learn things that Sam's didn't do. Like we weren't fine dining. We weren't like high-end service. We weren't doing wine. I worked at Ross-Ade Stadium. I used to prep from 4 a.m. until 2 p.m. as a college student, and it did not go very well. But like I didn't know high volume prep like that. And so I was always trying to fill in gaps on what my resume would be, or if like I was going to do in restaurants. So yeah, I did a little bit. My dad told me to, like he was like, don't get in the family business. This is like the worst idea I've ever heard. Like this business sucks, dude. What are you doing? But I just loved it. So, gravitated back.
I feel like you're like the Forrest Gump of the indie restaurant scene. You're just like every famous person has been in the background at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's easier access, right? Like people knew my dad and trusted him and respected him. And so if I like sent an email or like walked into your building and said I was Eddie Sahm, it'd be like, well, I mean, sure, like I'll just go call your dad if you act like a shithead. So,
Well, and it also makes sense that the names of people that are still standing, like all had some sort of, interconnection.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Early on. You were, so how many restaurants do you directly like oversee right now?
Right now, I don't oversee too many. I always oversee Half Liter's operation, which is our barbecue joint. It's big. It does catering. We have a full brewery on site. It's just kind of like a shit show sometimes because there's so many people coming off the Monon. So I have to be there. We opened up a bar downtown called Turner's, and it's more.
Oh, Turner's is you too?
Yeah. Wow. Turner's is more like cocktail focused. Like my goal was to be the cheapest bar downtown, right? Like the theme, the mission statement is a dive bar that gets cleaned 15 minutes longer. Like that's kind of like the vibe, right? Just be like, wipe that booth one more time, maybe. Like
that.
That's been on my most recent like bar I really wanted to go check out, and like that, and I went and did something. We were promoting for our adult summer camp, and I was like, I think I misread there was an event there, and it was like the whole night I was just pouting. I was like, I want to go to Turner's.
Yeah,
I think there's because like do they do like a third Thursday or something?
Yeah,
there?
they have like the Stutz building does like some stuff. That's where it's at, the old Stutz building in the remodel.
But it's like you guys, the taco place,
yep. Julietta's, Amelia's.
Yeah, it's popping right over there.
I think Patachu opens up this month. Parlor Parista. There's some cool stuff there.
That's some really cool stuff. Not a side of town I'm ever like at.
No.
Like, so I have to make like a destination, but it's also right downtown.
Right.
But for some reason that side of town, I'm like, I'm never just like casually over there.
Yeah, it's never been unlocked, right? It's kind of, that's partly why we did it, was it felt interesting to try to bring to life a different part of downtown,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like residential spots over there though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think once we moved in, I had my concerns, but once we've been there, I've met so many people who are like, man, we've lived here for so long and there's just not a lot. There's fast food and it's just kind of like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to make it work. The ownership team of the Stutz is fun to work with. I mean, they're not from Indiana, but they're very committed, and they're showing love to a corner that needed it. I mean, there's so much investment. IU's putting just billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars into those buildings around there. So, I mean, if you can unlock like IUPUI and all those parks over there, and it can become a pretty cool part of what we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, it's Turner's is kind of a project for me that I like, but I don't have to be there a lot. I like making drinks and getting better at it.
When you over there, I want to come check you out when you're behind the bar.
Oh, shit. It depends. Usually 1 or 2 days a week I'll go over there. I make all the cocktails with a guy named Steve Simon, who's a well-known mixologist in town, and then my bartenders Andre and Lily. But like if you came in, like right now we have an October theme, and I'll usually make half the drinks that are on there, and then the other guys will make 1 or 2. So like I have a drink called the Blood of Rice, and it's a rye drink, and I wanted to incorporate wine, so I put in dry vermouth, and it kind of like evens it out. But then I bought some Eucharist chips off of Amazon, so we clip one on, and it comes on a gold cross napkin. So like things like that, it's like I couldn't serve that at Sam's; it wouldn't go very well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any pushback on that one?
Yeah, that Sam's crowd wouldn't understand my comedy in that way. So
I like that you could like try different things at different restaurants,
right,
and be yourself, because we're multidimensional people. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, having again your father owning a business and running that, what is your leadership style like compared to his? Did you adopt the same things, or do you feel that you saw some things and you're like, hey, I want to be this way? Right.
I mean, it's a good question, because it's impossible to avoid the idea that you're like that person, right? Not only is like my dad, but like he's just like a hard ass worker and been successful. So I guess for me, it's trying to pick and choose what I find valuable that made me a better restaurateur, employee, that he taught me, and then the stuff that maybe I've picked up along the way from different people who worked for us that can allow people to be, blossom into a position. So, I'd say the biggest thing is he is a hardcore workaholic, obsessed with work, obsessed with working, like just the process of working. He works all the time and he loves it. Like it's a passion. Like people are like, when's your dad gonna stop working? I'm like, if that guy stops working, he's gonna die. Like that's just like that's just like how this works, right? Like, he'll work till he's 95 and he'll be healthy and happy, and then one day he won't, and then it's like that's it. It's like you can't stop guys like that. I'm really not like that. Like I need space. I like to do stuff like this. So I'd say really for me, it's been trying to find out how to be the healthiest, best person you can be in a pretty hectic, shitty industry for that over time. And then trying to do that for my employees, like not trying to be abusive, to say, hey, you guys do that shit and let me have a better life, and I think that's Ed does that. Ed says, I'm going to work harder than all of you guys all the time. So even if you're working hard, remember I'm working way harder. Right. And that is one style of leadership for sure. Yeah. So I guess that's, modernizing it however I can. I don't think I have a recipe for success yet, but I try.
I do kind of like that, because especially if I've alternated between corporate and mom and pops, but like mom and pop, I'm like, yeah, you should be working hard. Like this is your like a lot of times, like this is your dream, not mine. Like,
right? You have to own that. It's the hardest part. It's the hardest part about what we do is like, yeah, man, like this is my thing and my name's on the wall. But it's so quick to like the movies and shit you see is always like this owner yelling and berating people, and it's like, no, man, like I make the money if we profit, right? Like I do better, you don't. Like that's just something that like it's a logical conclusion to figure out why your employees will hate you if you act like a dick. So, I think it's more about how do you have success and balance and then help other people achieve the same thing. And I haven't done that for everybody. Like I have employees who can't stand me, and employees who probably did well under my tutelage. But it's just balancing that out is what I'm trying to figure out, because I am still young, but I've been doing it since I was 22. I bought my first restaurant then, and to be 22, having people older than you was really tough.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot and tried to be like, okay, well, I don't want to do that again. So how do growing in that way? So yeah, man, it's a great question that I don't have an answer to, because I love my dad and then I love my boss, and I think balancing those two things out to not put him on a pedestal, but instead look at him as like a coach, right? Like Coach Pop from the Spurs. It's like, he's not the world's greatest coach. He's a mentor, it's like, that's what he does. He mentors guys and allows them to blossom, and that's what you look for.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's like a generational thing, because like the boomers from that time, or maybe not boomers, but like whatever generation your dad's from, they were taught to work hard like that. And like our generation, not so much.
Mm-hmm. It's different work ethic. I mean, different things, right? I think most people nowadays talk about balance and health, and it's just not stuff they talked about in the 80s and 90s.
I was going to ask you about that, because you've seen a generational shift if you started, being a manager at 22 or an owner at 22. Because Gen Z looks a lot different. They look at work a lot different. They look at, like you said, mental health and time off. I know for a fact, like when I was working on Mass Ave, like a high volume restaurant in like 2010, the owner would come in and scream at you, if things weren't going well. And it was funny, because like it is a type of motivation. Don't get me wrong. Like, oh, I don't want to get screamed at again. But I can't imagine anyone coming in screaming at their staff in 2023. And having that. It's like everyone's got their phone out. You're going to end up on TikTok,
yeah, for sure.
Record your boss.
But I guess what has that shift been? Has there been any noticeable things like where you've had to like maybe make adaptations or change, or have you just kind of always kept the same style?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some that I'm not thinking about. I'd say that the one that jumps out the most is the idea that the younger generation's always had a phone. And they've always had this instant access to like what the literally picture perfect world is for them, right? They have like this image of the perfect job, or they see this influencer who's making $500 a night bartending or whatever, and it's like, hey man, I'm not saying that person's not real, but I'm saying that there's a process to get there. And it's my job to try to teach you that process. And if you don't think of me as a good coach or a good leader, I got good news. You can just quit. I mean, like any time. But the same exists, which is if I don't think you're a conduit to having a good hospitality focus, then I can move on from you at any time. And that you have to get over. For me, it's been getting over that hump of like not being afraid of people quitting. Or not being afraid of letting people go when it's not the right fit. Sometimes that's like actually the most like courteous thing you can do, is to be like, hey man, this isn't going anywhere. Like this is bad, right? But the hardest part for me has been to try to talk them off of that. Hey man, that's not a real job. Like working 20 hours a week and making $2,000 a week isn't a real job in this industry. It might be somewhere else. I'm not saying it's not in tech or wherever, but like you're a server at a restaurant. At most in a week, we take in just say $10,000 in tips. Well, there's 10 people who work here. So like you can't make all of it, Right. So that's hard, man. It's hard to talk that into them. Where the older generation, I think, had to go through it, had to experience it, understood good shifts and bad shifts, probably developed bad habits and unhealthy relationships with the restaurant or drinking or the culture. But I think nowadays they want to talk about health and they want to talk about the good stuff. That's great. And then you guys start talking about the process to get there. Like how are you going to do that? You have to look out for one another. You got to make sure enough people show up for shifts. You have to start walking them through the logic questions. And then if they want to hear them, great, let's go. You want to be a part of that convo, I'm here for you. But if you start to like roll your eyes or whatever, then that's where I think I've learned to get quicker about like, you can't work here. Use your gut, follow your lead. Are they supposed to be here? Do you feel that connection, that similar a lineup of like morals and ethos? Then go. Then you can start to have a healthy relationship. But that's still easier said than done. I mean, shit, I've employed people way too long where I sit back and think, man, they're a terrible employee. But the opposite exists. I was probably a terrible boss. It's like that's something I'm trying to get better at.
Well, like back in the day, though, you had to put up with terrible bosses, like you said, with the phone. Like that's also an easy escape. Like if you have a phone, you can now quit and call Uber and leave. Back 30 years ago, it was hard to quit. You had to stay there, and then you walk home and like what happened? You have to talk to mom or dad, and they're like, I didn't like how the boss talked to me. Well, go back and get some money.
They had cars 30 years ago.
But they didn't have Ubers.
I mean, but you could just drive in your own car. In this scenario, do you not have a car?
In this scenario, I'm thinking someone is downtown and they don't have a vehicle, and they don't, have it all put together, but they could still figure out a way to leave.
I think our phone, like, this is gonna make me sound like a 1,000,000-year-old man, but I do think there's a thing with, like, for all the great that cell phones made all of our lives better, but like I've noticed a thing in just how flaky people can be now because of, it's just like people have no problem with flaking out at something at the last minute, whereas I feel like pre-cell phone is like you couldn't do that. It's just like, hey,
for sure,
I'm going to be here at 3:30. If you're not here at 3:30, I'll die.
I think there's the grass is greener thing's always existed, right? I mean, like that's like ancient times, that principle goes back to. But social media and instant access has definitely amplified it.
Yeah.
Where you actually see the greener grass.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm going to go there instead. And it's like, hey, man, like, I don't know what to tell you. That's just another restaurant. Like,
right.
You're going to be shocked when you find out that that's the exact same thing we do, And the amount of employees I've had come back who've worked somewhere else, I think they feel safe coming back because it's like we try to be fair. We're a pretty fair company. It doesn't mean we're the best company, we're just a fair company. And when you go to these other places, I think you quickly realize that like there isn't that green grass. That person who shot that video is either one, lying, or two, has probably worked at that job for 10 years, man. Like you've worked here for 4 weeks. Like that's just not the same thing. It's not that much different for like an artist or a comedian. Like very rarely, home run talk, do you just like have success day one.
Are there really like server influencers that are just bragging about how much money they make in the service? And like I didn't even think about that as like an avenue, like
or just posting like a picture on their story that's like made $500 tonight, going wild. It's like, okay, did they make $500? Because most of the people I know who make money don't talk about how much money they make. Like most of the people I know who are killing it keep that shit pretty tight. So it's like that to me is always like a red flag. But you definitely hear this stuff, and I mean, if I'm a server who had a crappy night, right, got treated like shit by somebody, got a bad tip, maybe thought I needed to walk out with 150, I walked out with 125. I'm reading that $500 message like, shit, maybe I got to change jobs. And if that message is coming into your head all the time, then no matter how good of a teacher or place we are to work, it just doesn't, it's hard to overcome that. So you're right, man. Like the phone thing is a huge thing. My father talks about it all the time, and because he's been through all this stuff. He's
I
like,
think
man,
I'd like it, Big Ed.
Yeah, and Ed's not like an old man about it. Ed's just like, the toughest challenge you have is how to like reach these guys and make them realize, do you love the industry or not? Because man, you guys, a lot of you are in the industry, you already know if you don't like this shit, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It is like the worst if you don't like it. And I've gone through moments where I'm like, I think I actually hate this. Like this is, I might want to like quit or something, But then I get back into it because there's a real love. But the people who don't really love it or thinking about leaving, my advice is always like, you should just fucking leave.
Yeah, I mean,
like just do it for you, not like you're a terminal employee, but like if you don't love it, man, you're not going backwards. Like their time is moving forward. Let's go.
I think for me personally, I quickly realized at a very young age that I felt that way about damn near every other kind of, like I can't do construction. I can't do, like I'm not a handy person. I can't like the more physical labor something is, the more I'm just like, this feels like torture. like am I in hell?
Yeah.
And then I realized I could always kind of gravitate to, and by no means in my early 20s was I like a great star employee, but like I could grasp it. I could do an 8-hour shift, a 9-hour shift, a 14-hour shift, and not hate my life. If I walked into an office at like 8:15, I have a gun in my mouth,
Right. It is, like, that's the biggest killer, I think, is like a lot of these guys want to leave. And I'm the same way. Like there's just some days where I say to myself, that's what I want. And then I realize that, no, man, this is like what I like. Like that, this is what I want to do. I like being active, but it's like anything else. It's like a sport. Like you're not going to go out there and be able to play a full basketball game just because you said you're going to. Like, you got to work out. You got to get in game shape. Like, and restaurants are the same way. You got to work a line shift. You got to get your ass kicked a little bit, but you start to get in restaurant shape, man. You start to like figure it out. And then you get better, and that just takes time. I know servers who can take 10 tables and make every one of them feel like they're like the sole focus of that shift. Yeah. And then I know servers who can take one table and the table feels like they were never there. Yeah. There's a gift in a practice that you have to work towards and get better at. And it's hard. It's just a constant everyday battle to say, are you in or are you out? And at the end of the day, it's like, I feel bad because they don't own it. Like if I could say everyone can own a business, you know, and just like Oprah it, like you own a business and you own a business, it'd be like, I would, but that's just not how this works, you know? And just trying to come to a conclusion on what type of employee you want is tough. I want the best one, but like you can't have all the best ones. Like if you have a staff of all the best ones, someone's going to do something else. Someone's going to get promoted or whatever. You got to have a few people who are probably struggling or new or young. Yeah. And then you just have to learn how to balance it all out, you know?
Yeah.
We have the same thing on the podcast. Like there's I would say 50% of us are really good in here, and then there's another percentage.
I did a ranking up at the table. I went through and I ranked all the podcasts.
Wait a second. There's 3 of us here.
There's some people are on their way out for sure.
Half of one of us is not doing great.
Wait, I haven't been to this meeting. Did you guys talk about this?
Yeah, you were there. So guess which one you are.
Let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
All right.
This week on the After Brunch Podcast.
Can you imagine if the situation was reversed and I did that to a woman?
Oh,
you know
no, because then you'd be canceled.
Yeah.
No, you would never have sex again. Yeah. But that's but that's also not fair to you because, and I say this meaning like, and I'm not saying like, oh, poor cis straight guys. That's not like, you know, but also, oh, poor cis straight guys.
That's the name of the episode.
Easy, Zach, easy.
Why are you going to make fun of me being poor?
But no, I was saying like, ah, you know, because I'm also poor.
Join us at patreon.com/harderbrunch.
We're talking about craft beer on the break a little bit, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention our sponsors, the good people at Upland Brewing. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Upland, to you. Upland Beer, they were proud sponsors of Adult Summer Camp. What I noticed is you went and got the Upland beer yesterday, Thad.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had this porter around, I feel like all summer, sitting there, and no one will drink it because it's as good as it is. It's not the season.
It's a winter beer.
It's a winter beer. But then you went and got beer yesterday, and I noticed 2 beers were gone. And guess which beers they were, Zach?
The porter?
He hit the porters up right away.
Well,
I mean, the second it got cold.
It was kind of like I didn't tell them exactly what I wanted, and they gave the porters. I just saw that. I'm like, all right, we got to get rid of those real quick. I don't want Dyke to see that I got porters. This is Bush League. So I just drank them real quick. I'm like, I don't got to hide these. I don't got to hide these beers in my stomach.
Well, this turned out to not be a great commercial.
Whoa. We did kind of slide into talking shit. Hey, I saw Andrew Priller there yesterday. Shout out to Andrew. Upland is great. And then this is something I like to drink as well. It's called the Little Dragon. If you're having weight problems or if your buddies are making fun of you on a podcast about your weight, try the Little Dragon.
Drink 7 Little Dragons.
Literally 0 calories.
No, I don't believe
There's no way that's true.
I said literally, so you can't challenge it.
What? Pretty sure it's illegal to say that.
Oh, you can't lie?
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, it has some calories. It's beer, for crying out loud. It's beer.
It's got calories.
Grow up.
You challenged yourself like it was a crazy thing to say.
Grow up.
I thought you were going to do like a Jay-Z rap. If you're having weight problems, I feel bad for you, son.
Yeah, I got a Little Dragon.
I got
It's not bad for
99
you.
calories in this can.
And the calories are none. If you're having weight problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got a Little Dragon and the calories are none. There we go. Stamp that.
Yeah, Upland, go ahead and give us the property rights to that ad.
There we go.
I mean, that is a commercial. Maybe our last one, but that was definitely
The calories are none.
Quick question I wanted to ask. So, at one point I thought I was going to be a restaurateur. Like, that was like what I was kind of in line to do. And did not work out that way. And I think I'm all the better for it. I think I've kind of found my lane because I was like a service industry guy my whole life. Went to culinary school. Was like, I'm going to open up a restaurant. I'm going to do this. And then like, I just had like a mental breakdown. And then it was just like, I think I found the lane. This is the lane of food that I like to do. Like, this is the lane. Like, I love hospitality, but I like targeted hospitality for people that really, like, I want the people that come to me to want the thing that I'm offering. You know what I'm saying?
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean, for us, a restaurateur in my shoes, I could fail at any time. I'd probably keep doing it, but there's like an obsession you have to have. The two traits I have that I think make me successful at this are very simple. And one is I'm extremely obsessed and competitive in this industry. Like I have no other real like interests or hobbies. Like I love my family. I love the normal things a human being loves, but like outside of that, man, like I just love restaurants. I read restaurant books. I watch restaurant shows.
It's a vocation.
I read it's like just my I literally call it it's my family's work, right? Like this is my dad's story. You know, I owe it to the family heritage, but like it's an obsession. It's not necessarily healthy. In fact, I'd probably say it's 100% not healthy. And most people who are successful in this industry are that. I mean, name off the top 5 in Indianapolis, right? And I think everyone kind of has that in their head. All of them have an unhealthy relationship with restaurants. Yeah, like it's just an obsession, and they're all probably the most competitive people in their friend groups. Whether they say they are or not, I would guarantee they are. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is I get 8 hours of sleep every night. I don't have anxiety. I just go to sleep. And I get sleep and I wake up refreshed and I'm just back at it again. Yeah. And most people I know in this industry don't do those two things. Either one, they have other hobbies and they start getting angry that restaurants are eating into them. Or two, they get really bad anxiety and they don't sleep very well. And all of a sudden they're like a shell of themselves. And those are just two things that I happen to not do. And it lets me be refreshed every single day. And that's not like a skill level.
Can I ask, why do you think it is that you don't have anxiety?
I don't know, man. I think it's just like a natural thing. I just don't really get anxious. You know?
You put it all out on the field every day, and then you just go home and you're like, I'm done. I did it. I did what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I go home and sleep.
I guess I get a little bit of anxiety about like really big events that are coming up. Like I just hosted a trivia night on Friday, and I write trivia questions and been doing that for a long time. But I was hosting this trivia night and I was a little worried because it was like new people, new experience. I don't want to let them down. But when I get anxious, it's usually about things that are outside of food and beverage. Like
I'm doing something new for the first time.
Right. I'm doing something else. Like, so I get anxiety like naturally, like anyone would. I just don't get anxious about restaurants. It's all I've ever known. I really don't know a different path. Like there's not like, I guess a performer might be similar where it's like, you don't get nervous on stage. It's like, I don't know, man, I've been on stage so much. I just don't fucking think about it. It's like, now you make me think about it. It's like, so I just don't really, I don't get anxious, and it's been nice. And I sleep. Like some of my buddies who are chefs are like, they just don't sleep. So how do you handle that? Well, I drink, or I do more drugs than I should do. And okay, well, what are you going to do about that? Well, to handle that, I'm going to break up with my girlfriend and focus more on work. Well, all that sounds pretty unhealthy, and like you should probably figure a different way out. So I just think this industry, it kills you if you're not able to like separate work from home life, if you're not able to have other hobbies. And that's where, to be a restaurateur, you just have to be okay with that. A lot of people have come to me like, I want to own a restaurant. What should I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you like it? Like, I don't know. Sometimes, okay, well, there's your answer. Don't be a restaurateur. Sounds terrible. Like, figure something else out. So I don't know. I mean, like, I remember you were with Beast, right? Was that... Yeah. I loved that like Chinese 5-spice, like peanut butter that you guys were fucking making. Man, that was good. And believe me, when I hear about something that's good enough, I go like get it and try it and figure out how I missed an opportunity. But you were doing killer things, and I think that's just the hard part. Like the hard part isn't do you have the skills? It becomes like, are you just like some of the weird intangibles you have to have? And mine, Ed Sahm, is just crazy. It's like a lunacy thing, right? He's just like so into it. It's impossible to break him away. All focus. For me, I was just born into it. Like it's just all I've ever known. So I don't really know anything else.
I mean, I'm crazy too. Like this is crazy. Like this is like we literally went to a TV court show. Like I sued Thad last year on a relative justice court because we're cousins. Yeah, and. And the real judge on this fake show is just like, this is a terrible business plan. And I'm like, I can't even separate reality from fiction right now. Like, I can't. This beautiful judge is yelling at me and dressing me down. She's saying a lot of right things, actually. She's saying a lot of right things.
I think I got to go to jail.
One of the questions I want to ask you, because I've always had this theory that people treat you, especially in this, I only know the service industry. I don't know, other walks of life as well, but in the service industry, it's very laid out, and it's because I'm a very similar thing where I've had almost every position from dishwasher to business owner, and people treat you differently depending on which rung they think you're on. Like a bartender gets treated differently than a server, gets treated differently than a dishwasher, gets treated differently than an owner. I always say if you put an apron on, it's like a cloak of invisibility. If you put an apron on, it's like you're not even human anymore to a lot of people, unfortunately. Because I also know that being a business owner, you wear a lot of different hats. So like, I'm sure you're, mopping up something gross, unplugging a toilet at different times. What has been like the wildest things that people have said to you thinking like, oh, this guy's just like,
a nobody?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the French Brigade system, I think, is responsible for like a lot of that stuff, right? Like this industry as a whole owes a lot to like the idea that you're lesser and like until you work your way up. So for sure, that's like a real thing. And it exists in most restaurants, whether they like to admit it or not, that exists. So, I mean, as far as like experiences I've had where like I felt called out by somebody, a lot of times it was with customers. Like I'm not like I wear a suit at work or like I dress up. Like I'm literally the opposite. I wear like tie-dye shirts and I do not look like I belong in the establishments I own. So a lot of times it's customers being like, I need to talk to somebody or like, a lot of times that, and like, I almost don't want to tell them who I am because it's like, does this person think that I'm like homeless or something? Like I'm trying to help them. I'd say with employees, it happened a lot when I was younger. I'm lucky enough to look older than I am. I'm 36, but I have all this like gray hair. I'm way out of shape. And so people think I'm like 60 years old. So I'm like walking in like, oh, you're Ed's brother. I'm like, nope, that's
you've got a hot Santa thing going on.
Yeah. So I'm like, I appreciate that. Thanks.
If you want to file any sexual harassment, you have to do that through Zach.
Yeah, I got a real Christmas kink, so it works out.
Oh, good, perfect. I was worried.
But when I was younger, for sure, I had a lot of people who had no idea who I was, and like it was on a regular basis, employees who were 30 to 50, who were looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
I'm like, what are you talking? Why are you asking me to do that? And I very much just took it as like, I got to prove them wrong. I got to just like do the work myself. And oh yeah, don't worry about your side work. I'll do it for you. And like, I kind of was that guy. And I got fed up with that really quick. Like a few 100-hour weeks in a row. And by a few, I mean like 80 became this like, oh, this sucks. Like I don't see even my friends and I don't have a life and I don't really know what's happening outside of 65th and Keystone.
Yeah.
I know what happens at Arby's and Kroger and this is all I know about. I definitely had a few where it was like, hey man, go fuck yourself. Like a server telling me that. And I'm like, oh, hi, my name's Eddie Sahm. I'm your boss and you're fired. Then that was probably the earliest. But now I don't know. I don't think a lot of people I try not to hire people who have like huge ego problems, So.
What are you asking people to do to tell, like, for them to say, go fuck yourself?
Nothing really. I think there's just this like energy in restaurants sometimes that like people are on edge and angry and whatever. And if I come up to someone like, hey man, you need to go bust that table. You've just, that one thing just like sent them over the edge. Or, hey man, you got to make sure that you're carrying your tray the right way. Like doing the thing where they're like holding it against their body and like the salad's pressed up against their shirt. It's like, hey man, you can't carry that. Let me show you. I know how to carry a tray.
Yeah.
Like, dude, just like, hold on, like 5 seconds here, man. Let me show you how to carry a tray.
Yeah.
Why would you know how to carry a tray better? Oh, I've only carried this tray like 20,000 times. So let me just like show you. That stuff in this industry is just like an everyday commonplace thing. It's all the time.
I work at I have like a bunch of different side jobs, but one of my jobs is I work at a wedding venue as a bartender, which is pretty much just Groundhog Day of the same wedding. Right. Like
someone's best day of their life, and and you're just working your job.
The same bad jokes every day.
It's like Groundhog Day with different races.
Yeah. Well, usually there's one. That's the worst. No.
Oh gosh.
Peruvians. I said it. No, but like I had a lady last night.
Wait, I think you're talking about black people. By black people, Spidey senses went off, but let's go on. It's October.
Spidey senses. Okay. No, last night I was working a wedding and somebody came up and ordered a drink, and it's whatever. There's tip jars out, but it's whatever. It's an open bar. I don't think I've ever been like served someone a drink and then been like patted the tip jar, like what are you doing here? And this lady was like, people love to tell you why they're not tipping. People love to give, and like we have like a cash tip. We also have like a Venmo tip thing. So I'm just like, look, there's two options here. If you're not inclined, that's fine. No one's forcing you to tip. But this lady came up, and it was late. It's also a 5-hour open bar, which I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah, I think illegal, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. It's not. Let's take this business down. But like this lady came up at one point, and she was just like. She like got her drink, and I'm just like, here you go. She's like, oh, thank you. And I was like, not a problem. Have a great night. And she goes, I'm not gonna tip. And I was like, what? And she was like, I paid for all of this shindig. And I was like, oh, like, just like, I figured mother of the bride, whatever. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh. And she goes, and you are making a mint. Is what she told me. And then floated away. And I was like, shouldn't talk to human beings like that.
No,
like, what are we
that's
doing?
The hard part when it's like the human element.
Yeah.
I saw someone tweet the other day that their credit card got stolen. And the guy went to a restaurant and only tipped $4 on 100. He's like, "Hey man, that's my name. You already stole my card. Please don't ruin my name."
That's funny.
But it's like that. That to me is like it's like inherent in people to be bad tippers. Like some people are just bad tippers. You could tell them, "I'm going to give you $100, and I want you to go spend $60 and give the rest to the server," and they'd be like, "Absolutely not. I won't do it." It's like when I'm going to give you $100.
Yeah.
No, I won't give them that. It's like. Why? What? I don't believe that like you should just tip all the time. Like if you get bad service, there should be a barrier to what you're tipping, right? Like I try to tell my staff, we owe it to them to give them a good time. If you feel like something didn't happen, food wasn't right, ambiance wasn't right, the things that fall on my end of the spectrum for the restaurant, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to comp their meal. I'm going to make sure they're taken care of and make sure that they feel inclined to leave a tip because we paid back what they think they were owed.
Yeah.
But as far as like getting someone to go above and beyond, you owe them hospitality. Like you know what you signed up for. This is a contract. Like you get it and I get it. But the idea that some people are bad tippers is just real. Like they just are. They can't get over it. It's like it's something I've tried to help people understand. It's like that is a person, like that you are working and like you expect this to happen. How do you think they get paid if you don't pay them? Well, I don't owe them anything. Yeah, but you do. Don't eat out restaurants. Like that's, and then you get in, there's way more conversation we get into. Like, do you build in tips to the checks and all this stuff? Hey man, like that's not for me. There's a treasure trove of shit you could get into, but there is what I've learned is some people are great tippers because they're more empathetic and value human interaction, and some people are terrible tippers because they just can't. They don't think of restaurants as human things. They just think of it as I need to eat and I need food now.
This is spicy. I do want to say that I don't want to pull you in this conversation. You could just like be like, yeah, because this is probably like a line, but black people being black tippers, bad tippers. Is a stigma, and you go it works reverse, like where I've had waitresses treat me bad or not pay me any mind, baby, and I can't read their mind, but maybe because they think I'm going to be a bad tipper or whatnot, or you're not dressed like with putting on the Ritz.
You didn't wear pants, Thad. Everyone told you to put the pants on.
Underwear is sufficient for any restaurant.
And that's why you should have worn that,
if you wear it at the beach, you can wear it at the restaurant. Okay?
What's your question? I'm so curious
that's
what your question is.
We just open the floor to talk about black tipping?
No.
Is that what we're doing right now?
It's not a question.
Racism is a thing that's been prevalent in our country for hundreds of years.
Eddie, can you solve racism?
That's why I said you don't have to say anything because it's not a question, but I agree with you. Yes, you should probably tip this as a person, but on the same side, the person sitting at the table is a person, and until they've tipped or whatnot, like don't phone it in just because of their race or their gender or how poor they are looking, or how bad they smell.
Right. The reality is, have I seen black people tip poorly? Sure. Have I seen white people tip poorly? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Have I seen rich people tip poorly? 100%.
Yes.
But I've also seen the opposite.
Yeah.
I think the real thing is, if someone comes in to your restaurant, you have to understand what the social contract is. And then you have to ask yourself, what kind of restaurant are you? Right? Like if you're a restaurant that's asking for people who don't want to spend money, you have the cheapest prices, you don't really spend any time cleaning your restaurant, well, hey man, you're not like exactly asking for people to come in and open up their checkbooks. Like it just is what it is. But like if you're a restaurant who's trying to get big tips and has, your servers are banking on big money and tons of support staff, you have to have hospitality.
Yeah.
Not like this. I just hate when servers kind of have that expectation of like, hey man.
Yeah.
Well, how about a little bit more? It's like, that's the way, did you earn it or not? And my good servers earn it. Like they go through, my good bartenders, they're just personable and empathetic. But yeah, man, I mean, I think the stigma is 100% real. It exists. And it's like one of those things that you break it down to the simplest measure, which is just everyone who comes in here, give them the same level.
Yes.
You don't know anyone, you don't owe anyone anymore. Whether they're a good tipper or not, that good tipper is going to tip you well. I can't tip less than like 25%. Like I don't have it in me to physically do it. I'm like, I can't. This service was so bad.
Yeah.
$30 on 6. Like, it's just like this thing I can't do because I feel like this person's going to be mad at me. So it is inherent. It's like in you, and you almost can't change it. But you
I feel
owe that
weird
person
when I go to like
thing.
McDonald's sometimes, and I'm like, oh,
You're not gonna
I'm
get
not
tipped?
supposed to tip, right? Like, there's no.
Right.
Okay, all right.
So it is. I mean, it is real, and I think the same thing exists for like elderly people, right? Like, oh, these guys aren't going to tip me anything. Church crowd, these guys aren't going to tip me anything. Like, there's just certain things that over years have gotten put into this like group of I don't want to. College kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste my time serving them, and it's like, who else were you going to serve? Like, is there some magical table in the back I did not see? Like, this is the 5 tables you have. Like, go help them,
Yeah.
And you can turn someone into a good tipper if they trust you. Because a lot of times it's a trust thing and a human element, and they don't trust you, they don't know you, they don't consider it a human interaction. But once you win them over, learn their name, they learn your name, usually you start to see them value that interaction a little bit more. That's the only way I can do it, is you just got to break it down to the simplest. Does the server value every table or not? And then are they part of, do they fit the ethos of your company?
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be a deciding factor on if this person is a good employee, good server, good bad server.
Yeah.
Like the server that's going around going, I'm not taking the old people, I'm not taking the black people. I don't want the college kids.
Oh yeah, right.
That guy in the tux.
I've got a question for you, Eddie. Have you ever considered politics?
I've been asked that before. My grandpa was the head of the CYO here in Indianapolis. And I to this day think if my dad ran for mayor, he would win. I mean, like I don't think there's really any debate. He's just that type of guy. He does good all the time. But no, I would never run for politics.
Because the way you handled that absolute landmine of a question was excellent.
Well, shit, man. This is what you deal with. Though. Like I said, all I do is restaurant stuff. So it's like, I fall into that trap sometimes where like things I grew up thinking, and then all of a sudden I realize like, oh, that's like wrong. Like, you're not supposed to actually think that stuff. That's not real. Like that's just like years of mean, ugly people telling you something, whether it was out of jealousy or spite or whatever. It's like, so I actively look to try to get better at some of that stuff, and I probably still fail sometimes. I really do have the hardest time with church crowds. I have the hardest time with people who think that they're like tithing to a church or their religious givings somehow exempts them from the idea that like you come to a restaurant and can just hand a Jesus card to say that that's your tip. It's like, hey man, that's fine. I'm glad you have a good relationship with your God, but that does not mean that I got paid today. And it's like, and that stuff really does bother me. And it's a real thing. I mean, it's kind of like we're going to tip less because we give back to a church, and you should too. And it's like,
would you rather get $5 or go to heaven for eternity?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what you got to think about.
I wasn't going to go to heaven until I got this Jesus card.
Right.
I've even heard one server say that their table told them like, well, I only give 10% to the Lord.
Wow. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good.
But that's of their income.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Any more than that is
The Alpha and the Omega only gets 10%.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did.
You want 20?
You want me some flapjacks?
You
double
two
what
gods?
the Lord gets.
So now, is
That's
that wrong?
hilarious.
Is it wrong to think that? I mean, probably. Like, do we owe it to them to have a great time? Absolutely. But like, that's been in my mind when I work a Sunday brunch shift.
Yeah.
And that fear of literal God is in your head of being like, oh shit, they're coming. Like, here they come. And it's full and it feels busy, but it's like this busy is going to be about like 8 to 10% less than a normal busy. It's like, that's rough. That's hard on anybody. So, Yeah, man. No to politics. I just
No to politics. Well, speaking about politics, I'm kidding. We're not going anywhere in politics right now. Hit that beat.
What are you doing? Yeah, there you go.
Actually, that was a really bad idea. Can you hit the bad idea button? I'm Bobby. I'm just shitting the bed for no reason. No one's
Were you
asking
gonna
me.
rap?
No, I wasn't. I'm going to be honest what happened. I said politics and I didn't want to get into it. And I panicked in my mind.
Okay, panic rap.
Because I didn't know how to back out of it. I'm just going to be very honest. I was like, hit that button. Just to throw whatever I was saying off there.
So we're separating.
Hit that save me button.
That's exactly...
How about we go into the Smoking Goose
There we
brunch
go.
breakdown?
Thank you, guys. Hey, who was that guy that's going to get fired from Harder Brunch again? I can't figure it out right now.
Smoking Goose on Dorman Street. Obviously, one of our sponsors. They're great. They have amazing charcuterie. What I would tell you is even I, who's been sponsored for a long time, sometimes forgets the difference between Smoking Goose and Goose in the Market.
I was going to say welfare's not sponsorship.
Sometimes,
Jesus.
sometimes when you order some, let's say, smoked octopus, you think you're going to get a Smoking Goose, and then realize you ordered from Goose in the Market, and then realize that you have to be at work in 20 minutes, and you don't have enough time. But luckily, your roommate is a real mensch, and will go pick it up. That's why I'm glad there's Smoking Goose and Goose in the Market both. Because one's a deli and one's a wholesale place. And you can get amazing products from them year-round. And if you mess up, hopefully you have a nice roommate that'll go.
Man, our commercials are on point today.
They're great.
I'm sold.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I love Smoking Goose all around. Chris Ely is probably one of my best friends in the world.
Yeah, you guys are always calling each other, texting.
I do love Chris. He worked for us. We have a sandwich called the
I do
Goose
love
Melt at Big Lug, and it's the city ham and the capicola. And we it's as simple as it gets. It's got cheese, lettuce, and a vinaigrette, and it's just like out of this world. I mean, I don't. You cannot go wrong with their ingredients because they're made with love, man. That's like a real thing. Local love all the way.
Yeah.
He was a good, and I feel like there's a Venn diagram between cool restaurant people that are good guys in the city and guys that eat weird meats.
Yeah.
And I feel like you were talking about eating some squirrel earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Like Chris Healy loves the offal. We did some weird stuff today for our spooky brunch. So we're a week behind. So this is going to come out right at the perfect time of October.
Perfect.
So we wanted to do some spooky foods with you. And I asked you, I said, is there anything like that was off the table? And you said no, right? It's You're an open eater.
I'm open. I don't love olives.
Okay.
I think is what I might have mentioned that to you. I just think olives are. I think it's like a weird food. Like they're fine, but it's like this shit is intense. Like it's fine. I just don't love it. I got a weird thing with olives.
I would say I feel like olive is a thing where I'm like, every time I eat one, I'm not sure if I liked it or not.
Yeah, I just think it's a pickle. I think it's like a pickle gone wrong. You know, it's like it's just not.
A pickle having a bad day.
It's just not my thing. It's like let's use a caper, man. Like it's just called a fucking day, you know. But no, everything was on the table, and I was glad the menu was like it was because that's just not something I'm gonna eat every day, you know, which is cool.
Yeah.
Started off, so we did a charcuterie board and used some amazing Smoking Goose. I have so much Smoking Goose product in my garage. This isn't a commercial. This is like the truth.
We're here, yeah.
I have so much commercial, so much product.
It is a commercial.
I have so much commercial product in my commercial fridge.
It's a bad commercial.
It's like the opposite. I don't want to order that.
I didn't know this podcast was gonna get so meta, but here we are.
It's a real Nathan for you situation. I built an entire Smoking Goose out back.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a commercial from later.
There, you saved it because the first commercial did sound like a complaint.
Yeah.
Straight up.
We're gonna do a weird Nathan for you experiment where like we stop serving black people at Sam's. Like, I have an MBA from Canada. This will work. I can't wait for someone to segment that out.
The plan.
And the Psalms Empire fell in 2024.
I mean, you can get real meta with that, and like, you know what? He's actually supporting black people, like not supporting black people, and people are getting attention from this. Like, dude, he's cool. Actually,
Yeah.
he's real cool.
This is the original woke. It's right there. But no, I have so much product that so I wanted to do bone marrow was the original idea. I have a problem with like I have to tattle on myself if I wanted to do something that didn't work out. I wanted to do bone marrow. I always have a problem sourcing bone marrow because it's either you can get like 50 pounds of it,
right,
or I can't find it.
Yeah,
like that's my two things. So
it's not cheap.
So I was like, I wanted to do a bone marrow and bread kind of board. That was my original idea. I went to Saraga. I thought I could find some there. I was promised I could find some there. And when I got there, all I found was beef feet. And I was like, does beef feet have the marrow in it? And I just bought it because it looked like it did.
Yeah.
And then I roasted it last night, and it made something. It wasn't something I was going to serve to you.
Yeah. I was going to say, you could do like a pozole out of that. Like, you use like, that's a good start for that.
My original idea, what I wanted to do, and it didn't happen, is I had this lamb skull, and I wanted to do a beef marrow candle on top of it. That was the original like kind of idea. But what happened is I got the lamb skull, they cut it and they quartered it, so it was this open head, and then the beef feet turned into. I was like, I'm gonna light this shitty candle. It's gonna smell like feet, and then I'm gonna serve it inside an open skull to like the biggest restaurateur in the city. And I'm gonna be canceled from like going outside. Like,
hey, we know what you did.
Yeah. And he's still gonna ask me, what is the theme again?
So I even went to Walmart this morning looking for marrow. Couldn't find any. So I panicked and I was like, I don't know.
That's a panic look.
I was like, I got this meat. I got all this meat in my freezer. So I literally pulled something out from Goose and I defrosted it. And when I defrosted it, the label disappeared. And so I was like, I don't even know what this is. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to cook.
Man, you're just full telling on yourself today.
Yeah.
So this dish was great.
So there was a mystery product from Smoking Goose on there. No, but we had a really good soft rind cheese from there. And that was one of the things that I do like going into Smoking Goose is because like they'll be like, now they're excited because they know I'm from the podcast. So I walk in and they're like, hey, what are you doing this week? What's the theme? What's going on?
That's fun. It was good. That cheese was good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was very good.
And then the Amelia's bread. The Amelia's
That's a can't miss.
bread. Local Folks, which is one of my favorite local. Like when I used to have the food truck, that was like the sauces for a lot of our burgers was Local Folks. So I always try to incorporate like businesses that I like and stuff that I enjoy. So that was the charcuterie board. And then the next course was Cthulhu Tartare, which was the Smoking Goose smoked octopus, which I sent that all over the city for. And then filet mignon. So it's kind of like a surf and turf octopus and beef tartare, which I've only seen done once, and it was by Chris Benedict from Love Handle.
Can't go wrong falling down.
And so I hit him up and I was like, hey, do you remember we did this event? You did this? And it's just always like, he's so excited just in every conversation they have. He's like, yeah, man, I think I did this and blah, blah. I think I put mayonnaise in it. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
He's, if there was ever someone who has the like love somehow like season their food, it's like Love Handle.
Really?
That is like I know he's using the same ingredients but why does it taste so much better? Like he's so good at doing it. It's just incredible.
Mm-hmm. That's always been something like when I was like a craft cocktail bartender, and I always feel like an ambassador for the city. Like ideally, and at my worst, I'm at least a pretty good ambassador for Indianapolis. And when people ask me like where to go, like one of my biggest things is always like Love Handle. I feel like is the most unique thing mom and pop place that you're gonna get in Indianapolis. Yeah, and I think it's because Chris is such a weirdo.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. in the country and it would fit in because it's like real.
Oh, okay.
For sure. But that was delicious, by the way. It was. And it's not something I would always order on like a menu, you know, like tartare doesn't really like appeal to me that way. But like getting to try it that way was like very cool. Like just interesting flavors, like more rustic. The texture for the octopus was like perfect for that dish. It was really good.
Yeah, I would drive like an hour for smoked octopus. I love smoked octopus. It's my top 10 favorite food. And you did do a plug for Love Handle. Also, I want to say I liked what you said on the table about Sahms. Like people, like when you've been here in Indy, that's when you know about it. You have to be privy to Indy to know about
right. Like we're not showing up on like the top 10 coolest places to go in Indianapolis. Sahms is 1090th on that list. Like, but when you live here, it's like it's good, it's consistent, the people are good, we care. And it's like, you know, that's the stuff where like if you live in like New York, there's that place on the block that like everyone goes. Yeah. Now there's tourist stuff with flowers all around the entrances and like the food's fine. It's not that hard to make some of this stuff. It really is, it's not. But like that one place on the corner is like where everyone's at. That's the place I want to go to. Yeah. And it's probably a little bit cheaper. It's probably not as like fancy looking, but it's just like the same. It's great. The people are great. You know you're supporting a good cause. So yeah, man, I truly think that's partly why I love working at Sahms. And Love Handle's a perfect expression of that. It is. They do a great job.
You guys did something at Big Lug last year. Well, I think like you're open on Thanksgiving.
I do. Yeah, I do a Alice's Restaurant Massacre Thanksgiving steak and eggs.
And I'll tell you personally, for someone like I don't have a lot of family, like I'm kind of like the last of my family that's in the city, and a lot of people were doing stuff, and I was like me and like two other people who just like didn't have family stuff to do, and I was like, hey, let's go check this out. And then we went, and there was like I was surprised there was like it was popping in there, because there's enough people in
that island of misfit toys,
you know? Yeah, like in that situation, and I was just like, that to me seemed very Indianapolis, very Indiana, very Hoosier hospitality.
Well, I'm glad you like it. We just literally play the same song on repeat, Alice's Restaurant Massacre. And one year, my friends and I were like kind of homesick. We were living here, but like we were living with each other and like didn't really see anybody else. And we were like, all right, let's like start a tradition. So we went to our restaurant and listened to that song, made steak and eggs. And the next year I was, there's probably a lot of people who feel that way. Like maybe I should just do it for everybody. So we started doing it. Now it's just a thing. Like I only serve one thing. You cannot order anything else. You cannot tell me how you want it. Like I will only make it one way because it's literally just me working. Yeah. I'm not going to ask anyone else to work on Thanksgiving. And then if a bartender wants to work, they can come in. And now it's turned into like they make a ton of money. We are only open a few hours and it's fun. I mean, and it comes from the heart. It's like a thing I like to do. So
it was.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was really great, and it was like my first time ever doing it, and it was like very special because I was like also with two people who were like for me, everyone just has kind of either moved on, passed on, moved away, whatever. But like I was with two people who were like, I don't like this holiday. Yeah. And I was like, well, let's go to Big Lug.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a great time.
It can just be it just gives you something that's not like turkey and think about all the things you're missing.
Sauce Boss Zach, you had the next course.
I served liver with a side of fava beans and a Chianti butter sauce.
Would you say it was a nice Chianti?
It was a $14 Chianti. Okay. So
wait, how much is Chianti supposed to be?
I don't really know. I mean, this is the first time I've ever fucked with Chianti or fava beans, to be honest. And I had to go to like 3 places to find each of them. So, but no, I mean, it's a wine out of, it's like a Tuscan wine or whatever. Oh, okay. And so it's just particular. I imagine like they had like 2 bottles there, and I'm sure there's nicer ones.
But. Are you going to do the Hannibal Lecter? Or are you going to do the like, I was waiting for that when you came out. It just never got delivered.
No, I feel like today was kind of a day of risks because I know I love liver. I love it a lot, and I know that's not a widely shared preference. And so I was very excited when you were on here because we got to kind of play with some stuff and do things we might not normally do.
It was great.
Also, I just always look at people's plates when it comes back, and it's never any like whatever. Like I only want to eat what I want to eat. So like, if anyone doesn't like something, I'm never like, wow, they didn't like my shit. Well, like, it is interesting when you're like, okay, most of the food got eaten, you know,
right?
Up until a certain point. By the time we got to dessert, I realized we were low key torturing people. I feel like
it is a lot, especially when you come up with the big trays. Like, oh shit, like that's a lot of food to eat, but like, it was really good. Like
the beef Manhattan I gave everyone, I was like, that's a full portion of beef Manhattan.
Yeah.
At the end, when everyone's already kind of full. And so I was just like, man, I just gave everyone beef tongue Manhattan.
Now, that was my absolute favorite thing of the day, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Like, I have never had better tongue. I've had tongue a number of times.
Humble brag.
You give great tongue.
Easy with it. Easy. How did your wife feel about that?
It was the best dish of the day. The tongue was the best. I think the liver could have tracked there. It just was missing like maybe doing some trying to think of like a grain, like maybe some like farro or some barley, like and having like maybe a little bit of like vinegar, like something to cut through it, because like with the onions and everything, it was just that much. But like the idea of it was, the flavors of it were so good. It was perfectly cooked. But man, that like tongue Manhattan was, you put that on a menu, it's gonna fuck. You know, it's gonna that's the real deal.
Well, how was the bread on that? Because I was so full at that point where I was just like, I can't eat more bread.
Oh, it was
it was Amelia's Pullman loaf. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed out.
It was another cheater. You know, you just keep putting like, oh, this person does this well. This person does this well.
Right.
I'm just gonna assemble this.
Yeah, you put Charlie's bread on something and it's so good. It was light. It was kind of surprisingly light, and I think that's because like the tongue just kind of dissolved. It was so good and well cooked. It just like melted.
Well, thank you very much. I was like, I completely, all credit is to my grandmother. Like, that was kind of a dish that I was raised up on, and that was kind of like my take on the dish. But like, also like that pickle gravy is just, it's something that like, I can't think of another time I've ever had it, you know?
Right.
And it's not like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world, but it's just like I've never, like, I had to like Google, like, is this a thing? Is this something that my grandma made? Like, I don't know.
I think that dish belongs in a lot more restaurants. It was really good.
And then the dessert.
So I did a black sesame mochi cake, which basically uses like rice flour and sesame flour is the main part of it. And then I made a sesame caramel, and then had a matcha mousse, which is basically, it's like a crumble or a streusel topping.
That wowed me. I wasn't expecting it.
This is from the movie Tombstone?
No, I called it a tombstone cake because it was gray. And then the matcha kind of looked like moss. I was really stretching. So what I didn't want to do, like when I was thinking about things to do for this menu, all that could come to mind was like the Better Homes and Gardens, like Halloween edition, where you make something in the shape of a ghost or
it's a pumpkin ghost.
Yeah. And so I was trying to do something that was at least different, and basically it was just aesthetically kind of Halloweeny. And I love mochi cake. It's just an interesting texture. It's kind of gummy.
Interesting.
It's not like
you say gummy.
Yeah, kind of gummy.
Very much so.
It's not as sweet as a like typical confection, and I tend to like the kind of like the Asian like not so sweets like the rice, the rice desserts and stuff like that. But this is my first time actually making the mochi cake. There's actually I know there's a farm market where I usually get it, and so it was kind of a play off of that.
Real quick, because we're over on our time. I could talk to you forever, but I did have a question that I wanted to ask you, because I feel like, and we don't talk about this very much anymore because I feel like we're a little bit away from it. But like COVID, I used to always ask people in the restaurant industry about COVID. We're about 3 years out of it. It's not something that comes up a lot, but I feel like you were the person, at least in my experience, that people look to. Like during COVID, as far as in the restaurant industry, what are we doing? How do we do this? How do we navigate this? And you were one of the like first voices that kind of spoke up, and one of the first people that kind of, I feel like, took the reins a little bit. What was that like for you? What was that like on your end? Obviously, you got to be just as nervous as anybody else. Yeah,
no, for sure. I watch a lot of Parks and Recreation. And Leslie Knope has a great line where she says, she's like, all we have is facts and science, and everyone hates facts and science. So there's times where I felt, And I think my father was just as influential as me for sure. I think the strength of our company is that we're very nimble. It's a father and son making a lot of the decisions, and there's other decision makers that do a lot as well. Don't get me wrong, but we knew something needed to change. Ed and I are both conscious of our staffs and our customers in a big way. We do have an older clientele for sure, and that was going to be something that was coming out. And Ed and I read a lot and try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening and in and around us. And clearly, at the beginning of COVID, it was just a giant cluster. Like no one really knew. It became divisive. I'll tell you, man, I'm a kidney transplant recipient, and I got one in 2015. And
humble brag.
Yeah, humble brag for sure. I got my kidney, and immune suppressant things became a bigger thing in my life, and I've been sick my whole life from this. Like, it wasn't like I was drinking too much or got hit with a helmet in football. I just, I had a disease when I was born, and this fixed it. So for me, I was very cognizant of what was going on around me and making sure I was paying attention. But with that said, I think the nimbleness of our company was to sit there and say, okay, what's our mission? And the motto for our company was feeding the community. Period. Right? Like, what does that mean? You that's what we do. Like, there's not like other shit that we try to, glorify and make it look like we're this, we just feed people, like do that, So then it became, well, we can't feed people in a normal way anymore. Like the way we consider normal is out. Like we have to just accept that. So then it became, well, we need money. We need to go to the government and say, hey, this shit's hitting the fan. Like senators, Congress people, what are we doing? Like this is gonna hit soon. So we got in front of a lot of people who had resources that they helped us out with, I think as much as they could. And so we were definitely making strides in the community to figure out what was going on and where were we going. But, we decided that a marketplace was going to be the thing to do and make groceries available and things that were going to get scarce, keep cooking, keep making real things. People's home lives were going to get chaotic. So like dishes might become less of a routine and more of like oh my God, I have to watch my kids and put them in at school. So maybe we do less dishes and things that you can just get by a little bit easier. So, I mean, none of it was out of like, man, we're geniuses and we're going to get rich, because we definitely did not get rich selling cheap commissary supplies. Like that's not how restaurants are built to make it. But, some government assistance was nice. A whole bunch of staff just sucking it up and like doing the work. I can't even say it enough. Like that shit sucked. Like we got a lot of the credit as owners, but the reality is that a lot of servers had to like change who they were and what they were. A lot of cooks had to do the same thing, and a lot of people quit. I mean, like they were exhausted. I mean, we got treated poorly, and for everyone that said we love you, there was another person who yelled at us about whatever thing they believed. And it's just like, hey man, we just let me do my job for the love of God. So that was tough, man. I appreciate it. I love that people think about us in that way, because it really just hits to the idea that we nailed the mission statement right. But I really hope COVID never happens again, because that sucks really bad. I don't know if I have a second idea. Like I think one idea, I'm out. Like that's the one hit wonder. So.
Well, I don't know, and it's kind of lame, but it's always the thing of just like, when shit goes bad, look for the helpers. And you were definitely a voice that was always like front and center when stuff was going bad.
Oh yeah, that ended up in some death threats. Why do you believe in mask messages on Facebook and whatnot? And I was like, oh, this is like real. This is real stuff, man. Wow. Like, but man, I'm glad that that's something we're remembered by. I think it just is a testament to my dad's hard work and my hard work to make feeding the community a reality. So yeah, man, I mean, this is such a cool podcast, and I think you guys are doing the same thing we do, just doing what you love and trying to get other people involved, and it's like, that's the name of the game. So you guys remembering us for that is cool.
Zach, can you drop a beat for me there, sir?
Hey.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's been a long time in the making. Hopefully we can come down off the wall of shame at a half liter there.
You're down.
Where can people follow whatever you want to on social media?
I really don't have my pages. You can follow me on Facebook. It's just pictures of my daughter. But I mean, go to Half Liter Barbecue on Instagram, on Facebook. Go to Big Lug Canteen and Big Lug Brewing on Instagram and Facebook. That's me. I do all the social media and all the tweeting. It's mostly shit posting, so I guess it's not that great. But feel free to follow.
I know you guys just did Oktoberfest. What's your next big thing coming up?
We're gonna have an anniversary party for Big Lug next month.
Nice.
I have Beetlejuice movie night in 2 weeks. I have to legally buy movies because I got sued for illegally showing them. And then, just little things here and there, man. Just trying to have fun.
Thaddaeus J.
Hey, you can find me at Big Lug. I'm looking for a date for the Beetlejuice night. This is a cry for help.
Zach Rome.
If you like what you hear, consider following us on Patreon. It's just $3 a month for extra episodes, and that's where we get real unhinged and talk about, tipping practices and how they associate with race.
Oh, gosh.
Remember when I was like, hey, I'm going to put this Patreon plug at the beginning?
Yeah.
We need to get better at that. Thank you guys so much. At Dyke Michaels on all social media. We love you. Follow us over to the Patreon, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.